You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we will be reviewing the action from the fifth and final T20 between India and England. Boys, we lost. I went for 4-1 England. I'm going to be eating humble pie today. I'm Jack Hope, and to go over everything, I'm joined as ever by Ross Legg. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm in a bittersweet mood because everything we said India had to do to win, they did, and they did beat England. So it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, and we've got an actual cricketer on the show, or ex-cricketer. Chris Nash, how are you doing?
I'm good. I've got better hair than Ross, which is always good. It's a shocking haircut. I've been on, the last time I was on in November. I don't think he's had it cut since then. So he's looking a bit of a mess. But no, I'm feeling good, mate. I'm a bit disappointed. I've just looked on my Twitter. I think I've got about 1,500 tweets from any Indian Premier League supporter. But yeah, I'm looking forward to wrapping up the game.
Ross, before we do that, can you quickly give our listeners some messages?
Yep, they should like and subscribe on the YouTube channel that we've got. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Cricket Pod. And you can also find Chris Nash on there, who likes to shout into the ether. So we'll be...
At Chris Nash 23.
There we go.
I know you're pretty crap with stats, aren't you, normally? Like, I know you like to... So, yeah, it's at Chris Nash 23. And please, no one give me any shit. I've got enough today already.
Yeah, the reason is the 23 in his name is actually his batting average across his first-class career. So there we go.
I don't know, if you don't want any shit, why would you lead with your Twitter handle? Because that's if you say it 30 or 40 minutes in, nobody's listening. This is the first piece of information people have got about you is where they can go to give you shit.
To be honest, having listened to a few of your podcasts, I wouldn't say 30 or 40 minutes in. I'd probably say a couple of minutes in. People stop listening. I think it's one of those things. It's like, I put your podcast in to go to bed.
And yet here you are.
No, Ross, I'm here. No, it's only because of the extraordinary fee you're paying me.
Ross, let's get back to the cricket, because I think that's probably what people are here for. We can't prevaricate any longer. Tell us about the game. What happened?
Yep, so Morgan called correctly again, and England decided to chase, thinking that was the best chance they had of securing the series win. Kohli and Rohit opened up for the first time, and who could have thought that those two batting together could be a dangerous combination? India started off going at 10 and over throughout the power play, mainly thanks to the excellence of Rohit. But even after he was out, India continued to smash it all around the park, and the likes of Sky and Pandya supported Virat Kohli in setting a mountainous 225. Roy fell immediately for England, but Buttler and Malan kept England up with the rate until Bhuvi and Thakur wrestled back control and pumped up that run rate and took some key wickets. England needed 83 off the final 5 with Stokes and Morgan, but India were in a ruthless mood and had wrapped up the game by the 16th over. There was no point watching the last 4 or 5 overs. India were brilliant after the 9th over in England's innings, and it was a huge statement when they conceding not Bumrah and Jadeja weren't even playing. So it's a mega series win for India.
It is. Let's start with the Indian batting, because that's chronologically what happened first. We only got to see 4 Indian batters. Chris, who impressed you most of the 4?
I think obviously the 3 guys who had a ridiculous strike rates. I think if you go back to it, if you look at the earlier games, obviously they got a pitch that suited them. I think good pitches in India do. Indian players are used to playing on small grounds, great pitches. They don't really bounce, and I just think the role clarity that came from having Kohli up top was what defined their whole thing. Obviously he only got 80 odd off 50. I don't know the exact stats.
Something like that. Yeah.
I did make notes, but I didn't. I'm not a stato. But his strike rate, actually, in the scheme of things, was not great. But when you define people's roles so clearly, I think that's what creates those kind of performances. So the way Virat started, I don't think we bowled particularly well up top. If you look at the shots that Rohit played early, they weren't brilliant deliveries. They were over pitched or short. So I think what we did early on a good pitch was we didn't hit our lengths right. once Rohit got going, that meant his role went very much that way, as in he was trying to strike at 200 plus. And then what it allowed Kohli to do was get himself in. And we all know when Kohli gets in, they win a lot of games because he has the ability to bat the innings. For him to be 80 not out at the end of the game, for them to get 220, I think shows how well the other guys played. I thought Kohli played nicely, but geez, it was a good pitch in the short.
So Chris Nash says anyone but Kohli when it comes to the most impressive batter. That's a good start.
Yeah.
That's a good start. It's quite on brand for this podcast recently as well. People think we hate Kohli. We don't. We just sometimes think he could do more. Ross, look, if you're a Mumbai Indians fan, which you're not, but you do seem to talk about them a lot, you've got to love the influence they're having on this India side at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, I just think from the moment they kind of set off, even in the last couple of games, Rohit Sharma has been pretty great when he's come back in. Sky just looks unbelievable. Like coming in, just the way he plays, no fear. That takes balls to do that, and especially against the likes of Archer and Wood, who are coming in bowling near off 90 miles an hour. And I think just when you look at how they are set up, you can see that the winning attitude comes through. No more so that when Kohli goes off the field, Rohit Sharma takes over, and they seem to do just that little bit better.
Yeah,
you guys really do hate Kohli, don't you? Like you can't. Literally, you just said, people think we hate Kohli, and then there's the dig. There's the dig. He walks off the field.
Yeah, look.
I should probably address this, should I?
I think you should. I agree.
I seem to be the one. So I was the one on Twitter live tweeting throughout today. So if anyone's watching and hating on that was all me. And there was just a bit around. We want to be able to see some of the best T20 cricket be played, and India have so much potential in that batting lineup and in their whole squad to play even better. They are limited by Kohli's captaincy, is what I'm trying to get across. And if you look at the IPL record of Rohit Sharma, he is a champion. There is no way around that. He is a multi-time IPL champion, whereas Kohli, how many medals he's got to put around his neck? Not too many, is he?
Probably 2 less than me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough point. I think that's a fair enough point, Ross, to be honest. And I think you can't get around the fact that at the beginning of this series, India were playing a different brand of cricket to the one they are now. And I think that the change maybe wasn't where Kohli necessarily thought or wanted this team to go. I think that change has been forced somewhat by the way England played and from the performances of Ishan Kishan and Sky when he came in the team and some of the seasoned performers as well, like Rohit and Pandya today. We probably shouldn't move on from this first innings without talking about England's bowling. Because 225, yeah. You know, like the pitch was good, and I think you could see from the way a couple of the Indian batters played on it that the pitch was really good. So take Pandya, for instance. He struggled in this series on some of the wickets, and England have had a really good plan to him. They've got the ball in at his ribs. He hasn't been able to get it. Well, he hasn't been able to hit any boundaries, basically. But today, on that wicket, he was able to just hit through the ball, and he could. He was hitting boundaries on one leg. It didn't necessarily look beautiful, but he was very effective. What could England really have done differently? Because even on that pitch, that 225 has got to be too many runs, hasn't it, Chris? You played the game. You played with some of these guys.
No, played with many of them, got many of them out, hit them many of the 6. But yeah, I think you have to look at it and think, first of all, like Adil Rashid's gone 4 overs to 30. So we all know the influence of spin plays in T20. You cannot go in, even if it's a part-time spinner, you have to go in with some other spin option. And I get squad rotation, all that. I get it all, whatever. But you're playing. This is the biggest one-day series, and if there were crowds in, it would have been obviously a different gravy. Because I think that makes you think it wasn't quite as big as it has been. You put 100,000 in that stadium, you know, and you could have put another spinner in, whether it be Moeen Ali or whoever, you know, a Parkinson or. I just look at it and think you cannot have one spin option in the T20, even if it was a Joe Root or something. I mean, I was surprised Malan didn't bowl because he's a good bowler. You know, Rashid's gone for 31 or 4 in a game that was it was a 10 and over game. You would say 200 was probably par I think you obviously look at India, their role clarity was brilliant. England, just watching, and look, I'm not a massive cricket watcher, but I did watch this game closely because you did obviously message me and say you want me on this afternoon. But one thing I'd say is we bowled a lot of balls in or over the stumps. So one of the things, in my brief foray into coaching was you either bowl out the swing or in the swing. So you either bowl kind of at the toes or you bowl wide of off stump. And I thought, you're not hunting wickets on these kind of pitches because wickets don't really matter. It's about runs. It's purely runs because 5 runs could be the difference between winning the game or not. Wickets don't really make a difference because it's such a good wicket. But I thought we bowled at the stumps a lot. Whether it's 150k an hour or whether it's 140. That was my one observation was we bowled a lot of balls at the stumps. And if you watch the guys as they got to the end when they bowled either at the toes or wide of off stump, they actually had some really good results. That would be my one thing which I think the team could look at on flat pitches, because the other pitches have had a little bit about them, haven't they? You could bowl back of a length. It was a bit too paced and the Indian guys didn't like it. But
neither did the England batsmen, right? I think that bowling strategy the whole way through, just from England, that is, has just been a little bit one-dimensional. Yeah. And I think when the opportunity was there to go, right, we should try out a plan B. You talked about kind of having another spin option. England in the build-up to the 50-over World Cup actually had a load of practice games, but didn't really change their squad that much. Morgan was just like, I want to play my best team. I want to be able to trust the men that I've got on the pitch and know what their roles are. But that role clarity you talked about, what India had, I don't think England had that. Sam Curran only bowled one over and then was shafted down the order. Whereas surely that was an opportunity to go, right, should a Moeen Ali play? Should Liam Livingstone being given a go or something like that? Even Reece Topley is a different option with the left arm. So there was just a little bit for me where I'm not sure England got enough out of this series to go, do you know what? That was a really worthwhile thing to do. Whereas India, on the other hand, have shifted what their approach to T20 cricket and actually have a pretty scary kind of proposition now.
Yeah, I agree. And then you look at other things like, I mean, for me, it's a real tough one, isn't it? You've got such a great force of players, but you think Stokes coming in when he did like that. I mean, for me, I look at that and I think, I will go into the batting later, I'm sure, but I agree with you. I think there has to be scope for Matt Parkinson there, and he's obviously taken time out. He's in the bubble, We're doing the whole rotation thing. Why not give these people a go? Because when it comes to playing in different conditions on different times, Adil Rashid's an absolute jet for England, but what if there was someone else with him today? I think it would have been 205.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it was a bit of a one-dimensional performance, which is easy to do now. They've lost 3-2 because to go to India with the IPL and the riches that come in their backyard and to only lose 3-2, 10 years ago, we would have bitten their hand off. But I think our expectations of England are so high and England is so good now, they could have potentially explored some other options.
I completely agree.
Ross, before we sort of move on to the second innings, let's talk a little bit about India's batting. Let's just really finish off on that. What I was majorly impressed by were how many sixes they hit. It seemed like they were doing it with such ease, weren't they?
Yeah, I think the timing just came straight out from the first 6 overs. Like Rohit Sharma looked like he was again batting on the perfect deck as we've kind of talked about, but just had the time just to be like a nonchalant cover drive for 6 or a nonchalant England's bowling plan to Rohit Sharma. I don't think was great. He's not got the best of records against pace bowling, but he has got really good record against playing the short ball. He's a master at playing the pull shot, and I think that was compounded by Mark Wood going for 4 overs, 0 for 53. And I think it's the only second time 2 bowlers have conceded more than 50 runs in a T20 innings without taking a wicket. So Chris Jordan went 0 for 57. And that shows you just how much England struggled. And it comes back again to that bowling strategy there. But India came out all guns blazing. Kohli was good in the anchor role, but Sky came out 2 sixes in his first 3 balls of the innings, and they were cracking shots, right, and completely different. And Pandya came in, but I liked that move. They could have sent Pant in. They knew that Pandya had got a better matchups, as they kind of talked about, and they failed to get it right on Sky, I think, a little bit when they talk about matchups, but that's fine. But there is a bit where Pandya was promoted and he did the job that they needed him to do.
Yeah. Right, let's talk about England's batting then. Because it didn't start off that well, did it, Chris?
But that's the way it goes. When you're chasing that target, you've got to take a few punts early. So,
lads, I'm gonna have to cut in. We have not talked about one of the greatest catches of all time. I know. We want to get
Jason Roy.
yeah. How good was Jason Roy?
I'm sorry to hold it together. I think honestly, this might be my slightly negative. The way I think negatively. All I could think about was when CJ passed that catch over to J-Roy was just imagine being J-Roy and dropping that. That's all I thought about. Like CJ is literally, I mean, look, I've been lucky. I've played with CJ hundreds of games and he stands at first slip or wherever. He's unbelievable. I don't think you can really argue he's one of the great all-round catchers in world cricket over a long period of time. He's absolutely world class. But yeah, I'll be sitting there if I was J-Roy and he's lobbing that ball 4 yards and you're sitting there like that. But yeah, that was special, wasn't it? And
Jordan was what? He was full pace. He's taken it one-handed on the boundary and still going. He's lobbed it back to Jason Roy, and this is where the magic happens, right? Jason Roy in the right position. He's got the game awareness to be in the right position. His body straight on, knows exactly where the ball's supposed to be. Goes, is it hands up? Is it hands down? He knows what he's doing.
It's a tough one.
Yeah,
that middle area.
When you look on the scorecard, what does it say? Caught J-Roy.
Yeah. It wasn't.
Itself, that is where cricket is fucking wrong.
Assists should soon be a thing.
Wrong.
That was maybe the best piece of fielding I've seen. Just the speed that it all happened at, and it was like ballet.
Yeah, but Jack, you weren't at where would it be? Northampton in 2012. I think it would have been April the 6th or something like that. You probably
so nobody was there then.
No, you weren't there, but maybe you probably missed my bit of fielding then, didn't you?
Well, do you want to talk us through it? Because you're going to talk us through it, aren't you?
No, not at all. No, because if no one was there, but it was all I'll say. It was way beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a real tragedy, and I've always maintained this.
Tell me about it.
That you never.
Welcome to my career, Jack. It was a tragedy.
You never got any exposure in the England team. Let's get on to the second innings. Ross, thank you for bringing that up because that was amazing. I don't think we've done it like full justice, but it's hard to talk about something that brilliant with such close proximity.
Well, I think you nailed it before we came on, Jack, saying that he's just playing a different game. Like your bit when you were talking around what you enjoy watching about kind of the Big Bash is actually some people talking about absolute clangers. Like today, I was made to feel like more inept than usual because of Chris Jordan's brilliance.
Me too.
Yeah. And I am inept, but there we go. Anyway, Chris. So Jason Roy got a duck to open up the England innings. You've actually been in that role, so this you were about to go on. I think you were about to go on and talk about what he would have been in the team to do, and to say that he was going out there with intent. That was the right thing to do. We didn't see it from Roy, but we did from Buttler, didn't we?
Yeah, look, you're chasing 220, and ultimately you've got to score 11 and over, which is a boundary, maybe 2 boundaries and over from the very start. And if you don't get off to a good start, you're screwed anyway. So you have to do it. And he's hit his first shot. He's hit a nice shot, which you normally take a sighter. Sometimes you don't, but you have to go. And I'd be more pissed off if he didn't. I think if he had nicked off playing a crappy defensive, you'd be like, oh no, that's not good. But that's T20. That is T20 cricket. But in that England side, you've got Buttler, you've got Bairstow, you've got Morgs, you've got all these players that can come in and score that. But you are under the pump heavily. I've definitely had games where you're chasing 230, 240 and you get out for naught and you think, yeah, I've missed out on a good pitch, but you have to go balls to the wall from the first over.
Yeah, you didn't do a KL Rahul, did he? And just ball eat his way out of 2 overs and then get out for fuck all. So it's positive.
I always do it now. When I look at games now, when you see someone who scores 3 off 7 balls, they're the people that cost you games, especially when you're chasing 180 plus. So Nowadays, when I look at games where you're chasing 180 and you end up 10 short, it's not the guys who get 40 or 30. It's the guys who get 3 or 6, 7 balls. And what I like about J-Roy is he just goes out. He goes out for it, and that's why he wins you games of cricket. And that England team has got match winners all the way down, guys who will go out and play with that bravery, and that's what Morgan's done to them. And that's why they are so good, and that's why they pushed India so hard in this series.
Yeah, and they really did look in the game, didn't they, Ross? What are we, like 10 overs in, or at the end of the 11th over? What were they on, 130, or at the end of the 12th
So after 11 overs, we were 120 for 1. So game was well and true. We're almost ahead. We're just about on the rate. So it was a huge effort from Buttler and Malan, and Malan had a load of pressure coming into this. I think it's. I'm not sure if Twitter amplifies kind of everything, but certainly the media was getting on this guy's back. And the ICC rankings aren't perfect. And I think Malan's domestic record we spoke about in the last podcast isn't actually that great. But for him in an England shirt, he's been supreme. And I thought today, he did reasonably well to start off with. He did slow down, but Buttler also slowed down, right? It got a little bit more difficult to bat because India started to bowl better than they were.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Malan. I think he did everything that people have a go at him for, myself included. He did the opposite of. He was he on 18 off 10 balls, something like that. And it really did feel, it felt like India had maybe got the fear a little bit. I mean, everyone here has played cricket to different levels, obviously, but you know what it's like when you're defending a total and a guy gets going or a couple of guys get going, and the score that you thought was previously, unchaseable, suddenly starts to look about 10 runs, 20 runs too few. And I think England kind of got it to that point. And I'm sure there are Indian fans listening to this right now who genuinely thought India might lose after the 11th over. Obviously, that isn't what happened. And I think probably the star for India in terms of really turning the game round was Bhuvneshwar Kumar. Pretty handy, Chris.
Yeah, I think, the notes I made, again, I was a student of the game, but what he did really well was he realised there wasn't going to be a huge amount off the pitch. So if you look at what he did, especially in the first, he bowled was it a wicket maiden, or maybe went for 1 in the first over, but he used a swing, he used his angles, and that was the one criticism I'd have of England, was they didn't use the angles and didn't change things up. If you were to draw a line through where a lot of the England bowlers bowled, they bowled from the same place on the crease every ball. You watch Kumar, he was changing where he was bowling from. He was changing his swing. 1 minute it was in swing, the next minute away swing. So I think he was intelligent. He was an experienced guy, inexperienced in Indian conditions, and he showed that. Whereas other guys who come in and slam the pitch or whatever, on those pitches they get exposed because there's nothing there for them. There's no pace, there's no bounce. So Kumar was brilliant in that he just held his line and length with a few changes. And that is what allowed him to get into the game. I mean, he bowled a wicket or a maiden in the first over, and then he held it back after that. But he just showed really good experience. He's
been a pain the whole series, right? As well, like he's proven again that he's kind of back to full fitness, and he's going to be a huge asset for India in the ODIs if he plays, but also Sunrisers Hyderabad where he turns up for the IPL. I think it's great to have someone back like that, and if you consider that he could be opening up with a new ball, and then Bumrah comes in, and we all know how good Bumrah is. That's a pretty tasty couple of pace bowlers they've got there.
Yeah, definitely is. I think the comeback of Bhuvi will be one of the big 2 or 3 positives that India will take from that series, because I think there were sort of question marks around him a little bit. I mean, he had a bad injury in the IPL, so we didn't see him too much there. But then the year before that, he'd been a little bit questionable. It was that spell, wasn't it? So what are we talking here? 12 overs to about 14 overs, where India bowled, I think, 22 consecutive balls without a boundary. Dan Weston, who's on this show all the time, bangs on about winning the boundary battle. Like if you can, the team that hits the most boundary win 80% of the games, and that's where England lost the boundary battle, isn't it, Ross?
Yeah, it was like a stark contrast, right? We looked like Buttler and Malan were going to lead us to the promised land. There was a bit where they were hitting it all over the place. Like Buttler to 1 over in, I think it was Chahar, came on. He hit him down the ground for a boundary, on the leg side for a boundary, and did what is a ridiculously difficult shot to do, kind of a back foot punch over the top of cover. And to do that off of that kind of bowling is like a supremely difficult shot. But then the switch just seemed to go the other side for England. And it was because like Chahar bowled, and it was an 8-ball over, but actually it was a really good over. I think it only went for kind of 6 runs. And all of a sudden that crept the run rate up because India had hit so many runs. Bhuvi comes on, and yeah, as Chris just said, it was brilliant.
But when you look at those little spells, it's funny when you break it down and watching from your sofa with a glass of wine and chilling on a Saturday afternoon is very different to being in the heat of the battle. But it's amazing what happens when. And one thing I'll say is when England were getting smashed for 220, one thing I'll say is they looked ridiculously calm as a whole. I mean, you watch some games and the people lose the plot, you see it in their eyes, they go. And England remained ridiculously calm, and that's obviously a testament to the culture they have and how good a side they are. But it's amazing when you see someone come in and they deliver those 2 or 3 overs, and it's like, so I talked about in and out the swing. Can you bowl a wide Yorker followed by a Yorker at the toe and a slower ball wide and then a slower ball in the body? And the one thing I say with England, I said it earlier, is that they just kept going at the stumps. It was either at the stumps or above the stumps, which makes batting, if a batter's going well on a tiny boundary with a good pitch, makes it look very easy because boundaries will just come, because it might be you are 2 inches and it goes behind square for leg. And how many times did the ball get hit just behind square on the leg side for 6 or 4?
That short leg, short ball line leg kind of thing was awful. Like we kept to bowl it just on the hips, and lo and behold, the quick wrists just kept on going for 6 runs, didn't it?
It was almost like, and you watch that, and then you watch someone come in and deliver those 2 or 3 overs where the batter just can't hit it, and you think, right, what does a batter want? A batter wants the ball in close in their arc. It's like saying to a golfer, here's your tee, right, we're going to move your tee 3 yards that way and then 3 yards that way. It's like, but I do think that we put it on a tee a lot and allowed them to have one swing to hit the ball. And this is me just being a complete cricket badger, but I think the one thing that they did in that small period was, the Pandias and that, they got hit because they just kept bowling at the stumps, whether it would be chest high, knee high, toe high. It was always in the same arc, and the batters could just swing dependent. But I think what happened with that little period was they just got a bit smarter. They changed their pace. They didn't put the ball on a tee, which I thought changed the game.
Yeah, well, it definitely did. Psychologically speaking, when you come in, I don't know if this happened to you too much in your career, Chris, but when you come in and you have to get 12 and over from ball 1, and there are like 8 overs left in the game or something, how difficult is that? Because you've seen other people doing it. It is possible. The pitch it's something you can bat on. But that's still, I mean, like 12 runs over, like you said it yourself earlier, that's 2 boundaries you have to hit without like even a couple of balls to play yourself in.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. And once it gets to 12, that's 2 fours, 4 singles. That's a lot to do every over. All it takes is one good over. And I think obviously that was 8 overs out. So you're probably winning 1 in 10 of those games if you're lucky. If someone has an absolute belter, I remember we chased 240 at Sussex. When Luke Wright got 150, and we chased 240 at Chelmsford, but that was a complete anomaly. That's going to happen 1 in 30. But yeah, it's so difficult because you're coming in fresh, and generally you see it either. It generally goes the way of you get a couple of caught on the boundary. Not only are they wickets, but they're dots, and that's the killer. Is that when you lose wickets, they're dots, and all it takes is 2 or 3 balls, and the run rate rockets. So the pressure builds so quickly, and then the game flicks. When the stakes are so high, it's 220. You'll find that the game will meander. In that England were in it, and then suddenly it switches in the space of 5 balls because it goes from 12 and over to 16 and over, just like that. And that's what happens when you put a big score on the board.
And is that when you need kind of consistency in knowing your team? So you talked before around kind of that knowing your role. England then mixed up their lower order hitters, right? They thought we thought their team was pretty set, and yet Morgan was being used as the finisher, which is probably the right decision to do. But then Jordan was put up the order ahead of Curran. Arch was put up the thing ahead of Curran. So you're kind of sitting there going, there was a perfectly good space for Moeen Ali to come in at that point.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't look at that. I wouldn't look at that and think that's the important bit. I think that's when you need one of your top order players to go from 50 off 25. So that's when Josh needs to get 110. That is because he's in. That's where you look at Stokes coming in when he did. Stokes is one of the most destructive guys. It's really tough. How do you fit them all in? How do you find that position? You'd almost say when you're chasing 220, who are your top 4 batters in that top 6? Would it be the top 4 that batted? Jason Roy, yes. Would you say Joss? Yes. Would you say Bairstow? Probably yes. Would you say Stokes? Yes. So when you're chasing 220, does that change your dynamic of the team? What Malan does brilliantly is he's a massively consistent scorer. He'll score consistently at a good strike rate. Would he chase 220? Don't know. And that was probably what lacked today. Is Stokes might have been 60 or 40, might have been 120 off 60.
Yes, so has that gear that we were talking about. That was the issue with KL Rahul that we kind of talked about. Like KL Rahul was the orange cap holder in the IPL last year. And that's great because it's the runs you scored, but actually him scoring at 135 is detrimental to the team. He lost his team more games than he won. And so that's why Ishan Kishan and Sky in these games has proven that there is a new game in town, and that is why he was dropped today.
And I say that with the utmost respect for David Malan, because he has achieved what he's achieved brilliantly. But you would say that, and it's a really tough thing to do, is to say, right, we're chasing 220, so we need to change our tack. If we're chasing 170, David Malan's going to win you a lot of those games because he's.
We say that we say that about Kohli all the time. Kohli, when a team's chasing 160 to like 175, is the best T20 batter in the world. When it's higher than that, he isn't, and that's the gear change. Fellas, we've been going for half an hour here. We want to kind of not. We want the podcast to be less long than the length of the cricket match. That's what we're aiming for.
We've got about 6 hours then with T20 in India. Jesus, never go to bed.
Right, just to sum up the series quickly, Ross, what were you most surprised by? What did you learn?
So I think what was clear is that England came in with that brazen attitude that they had from their kind of white ball success in the past. And we said in the preview that actually the benefit for this series might not actually be England batting in these conditions ahead of the World Cup. It might be that India actually learn a thing or two from England's approach, but probably have the dearth of talent to do it a little bit better, because actually out of the whole T20 squad, they do probably have some better talent in that side. And I think that main bit for India is now that they've realised, oh, hang on, the likes of Ishan Kishan and Sky from the IPL, they can do it at international level. The weight that was put on winning T20 internationals actually is probably equal to or less than some of the IPL games that they play in. And I think that could only be a positive thing for Indian T20. Chris,
were you surprised by anything or learn anything from this?
No, what I love you're just building these rivalries. You're building these we've gone to India, to play. And I remember, when I was growing up, I remember England going to South Africa for a 7-match one-day series and losing 7-0. It was, in the days where England was shit then, but we lost 7-0. But we're going out there now, and I think you see that team, you see them go into these environments playing. So the testing was one thing, but the way the T20's gone on different pitches, and England are going out there and competing with, the IPLs that everyone heralds the IPL, but England have gone out there, gone 2-1 up. You've got the absolute superstars and megastars of India, the superstars and megastars of England who play in the IPL. What a rivalry that has become. And then you bring Australia into it, and you see what's happening with the other teams. And I think this whole thing that's happening with the domestic leagues and the international stuff, I think that what I love is a 5-game T20 series. There's been so many crappy little 2 games, 3 games, 5-game T20 series. T20 is the game. We love Test cricket. We love T20. I think the 50 over stuff's fairly, I don't know really, but
it's pointless now, right? We won the World Cup. What's the point of playing it?
It's not pointless, but I think I love the Test stuff, and I think the T20 needs to rise above 50 over cricket, because I think the Test cricket is brilliant, and I've loved the Test series. I love watching. I think Test cricket has got this. I think it's got a massive resurgence. But T20 cricket and Test cricket are the two formats. Let's be honest, they're the formats we need to pump. So 5 tests, 5 tests, 5 T20s. How good's this series been? We went 2-1 up. We lost 3-2.
It has been great. It has been a fantastic series.
It's been brilliant. But normally they chuck in a couple of T20s. It's crap.
Yeah, play 8 one-dayers.
We can play 5 T20s in 7 days. No, it's no stress. Trust me, it doesn't hurt. So let's make sure every Test series is bookended by a 5-game T20 series. That's been my biggest thing, and what a rivalry that's become already. You got Kohli, going mad at the umpires. You got Morgs, the most chilled out guy in the world. It's quality, and it's creating a narrative which we haven't had in T20 internationals for a while. It's been about franchise cricket. I think T20 international cricket could be the pinnacle rather than the franchise stuff, which is just becoming a bit too a penny now. It's just, it's week in, week out. Let's get some international shit going.
Right, we've got time for a few Twitter questions, and we had 35. So we're not going to get to everyone. We might go through and answer them via a tweet. Let's start with Dan Weston, who's actually less on the show, so he gets name recognition. Chris, what are your views on 20 off 20 type starters? The guys who score a run a ball and then maybe kick on. He's guessing that because you played for Notts and that didn't seem to be how you went about things, that you won't be a massive fan.
No, I think you'll have good stats. A bit like you talk about, you'll get the orange cap. You might get some good recognition, but do you win tournaments? So tournaments are won by people winning games of cricket, and I think the guys who get 20 off 20 and 1 in 3 go and get 50 off, 70 off 30 or whatever it is. I don't know. I think it's about scoring runs rather than winning games. Winning games is T20. So sometimes I found playing in that not side in the last year or two was liberating, because we would sit there after a game and you'd have 5 players who scored 30 off 15. That won the game with a piece of piss. Whereas sometimes you'd have one bloke get a good score and play quite nicely, and then the other guys would have huge pressure on them. But I think that idea of getting 20 off 20, I think that role's going in T20 cricket. 10 years ago, you had 2 guys who did that in a team. Now, I don't think there's space for that. You can chase 120 and do it in 10 overs. Fuck it. You just got to have a crack. But I think the game's changed a lot. And I think nowadays I look very differently at T20 stats than I did 5 years ago. I don't look at, the guys who strike at this and average this. I look at, do they win you games of cricket? Are they consistently? Someone might average 25 but strike at 170. And if you've got 5 of them, you're going to win that. You're going to win that tournament.
Well, it's the Brendan McCullum thing, right? That's what he talked about. He said, I don't care about my batting average. I care about how many games of cricket I'm going to win for New Zealand. Yeah. And there was always that attitude of going, if I'm winning 3 out of the 5 games, leading from the front, smashing it all over the place, then I'm of much more value to my team than someone who consistently scores 40 runs at kind of 110.
Yeah. You look at the teams that win. You go through those teams. Look at the teams that if you've got, you see it pop up on Twitter every now and then. And they go, this bloke scored this many runs, and they weren't in finals day in the Blast. So if you're in finals day and you've had an impact on that tournament, then you deserve to get some recognition. If you've scored 500 runs and your team hasn't got to finals day, you might as well have got 100 runs. You got to have an impact, and T20 is all about impact. Whether it's with the ball, you might go for 20 in your first over, but do you win the game in the last? People like Harry Gurney, I've been lucky to play with Gurney, Hales. They have an impact when it counts. And that's why they win. And the teams that I've been in, with Sussex when we won, someone like Dwayne Smith, he won games of cricket. His stats wouldn't always be amazing, but he won you games of cricket. Scott Styrus. So there are guys out there who score lots of runs. Do they win tournaments? So don't really care.
Yeah, Ross. Honestly, half these questions are where's Moeen Ali? So can you explain where is Moeen?
So I think. So I think with England made a huge faux pas with how they've handled all the rotation policy, and it's really quite amusing that some of the same people who were sitting there going, "Why have England got a rotation policy?" are now then going, "Why have we not rotated people into this T20 side?" There's a bit of hypocrisy kind of going on there. I think when it comes to Moeen Ali, I'm not sure how much England trust him. now, which I find baffling. Like, if you look at the stats of Moeen Ali, especially against spin bowling in the middle overs, it's really difficult to find people who are better than him. And you can see why he went for £800,000 in the IPL for the CSK. I think England have got their bowling strategy wrong. I think their batting strategy is fine. But again, should you have Sam Curran who bowled 1 over today, or should you have Moeen Ali who could have bowled 3 or 4? I think we would have gone with Moeen Ali, surely. And again, it comes down to Morgan. In his head, he is playing the best team, wants them to play together as much as possible. But I think it's with a bit of a flawed strategy at the moment.
Chris, one for you, because you've been talking about this swing arc. So I'd like to round off that point, I guess. Gautam's asked, what can England do to counter the Indian bowling strategy? He's referred to sort of taking the pace off things, but I guess that includes, what do they do when someone hides the ball wide of off stump? When the tee is moved, like how do you change your golf swing?
When someone's moving the tee, Jesus, you get a bigger club. I think, but that's the challenge you're always facing, and that's where what you see is in T20, you probably say in the last 20 years, is it's always evolving. There's always new plans coming in, and if you can get ahead of a team for a short period of time, then how many times did England make the Indian batters bat outside off stump?
Not very often.
So, but that in itself, I know there's times when bowlers have gone wide to me, and it completely takes your rhythm away. So I think when the score is 200 plus, you have to look and say, was there anything we could have done to change the rhythm? So it's just, you might bowl too wide of off stump, or a slower ball wide of off stump, or anything just to change the rhythm of the game. And then your other ball becomes more effective because the batter's looking wider. So that's the only thing I'll suggest, is that you have to, as a bowler, be thinking, I need to change the rhythm. I'm going at 12 and over. I need to change the rhythm of this batter, because they're swinging every ball, whether it's back of length, short, full, and they're hitting it where they want. So
I genuinely think the biggest bit of that was the spinner today. So Chahar did that. When that 8-ball over I spoke about earlier, he was actually, the reason he bowled too wide is because Josh Buttler kept on coming down the track to him and smashing them all over the place. He kept on throwing it down leg side, and Josh Buttler couldn't maneuver. He was just like, I can't keep on letting these go for wides because I'm not going to. It just threw him off completely. So Chris, I think that's a perfect bit of analysis.
No, it's just identifying. So in anything, when you bowl, when you bat, whether it's a 4-day game in April or a T20 in IPL, there's a rhythm to sport. You see it in tennis, in squash, in any other sport, you see a rhythm. So I think watching it, I have to say, watching England bowl today, that if you're a batter, and not me, but if you're a world-class Indian batter who's used to facing 150k, they look like they got into a rhythm, and that's why you bowl slower balls. That's why you bowl slow ball bouncers, etc. Good pitch, short boundaries, but they got into a rhythm against our bowling, which it didn't look like they had to change their rhythm too much to hit the ball for boundaries.
Right, last question then, boys. This wasn't from Twitter, but I think it's a good way to end the show. If this is the T20 World Cup final come October or whenever it is, who do you think is going to win, Ross?
With Bumrah and Jadeja back, India.
Chris?
With Alex Hales back, England.
It's a pretty tough one, isn't it? I didn't really want to be the deciding vote.
He's my mate, by the way. So he did say to me, "Can you pump me up?"
And this is definitely the forum to do it. There are many of the game's power brokers that tune into the Cricket Podcast YouTube channel to learn more about how things work. I'm going to go,
Jack, including the agent of some Indian commentators who we were asked to. Should we go down that route?
No, let's not go down that route. I'm going to say England will win the World Cup final in October, because we'll get more repeat viewers when they don't. Anyway, fellas, that's the end of the T20 series. We'll have a day off or so, and then we'll be back with some other stuff. Ross, final messages for our listeners.
Yep, you should like and subscribe if you've enjoyed watching this on YouTube, and if not, let's argue in the YouTube comments. We've got nothing better to do right now, so pump up our Twitter and pump up our YouTube comments, and keep it coming.
Yeah, Chris, where can people find you if they want to?
At home.
Okay, well, there we are.
No, I'm just at home. So I mean, if anyone who's been abusing me on Twitter wants to come and find me, like I'm just here, as you can see. But yeah, Chris Nash 23 on Twitter. I'm a pretty big deal on there. I haven't got a blue tick yet, but if Twitter did Twitter watch this?
Yeah, big time.
They do, yeah,
Big
obviously.
time.
So if is it Jack Dorsey? That's his name, isn't it? If Jack wants to give me a blue tick, then that's fine.
Notorious cricket fan, actually. He's a notorious cricket fan. So yeah.
Apart from that,
Right.
I'm just here.
Cool. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Cheers. Bye.